little bit about yourself and your time at Eden, how you came to know Jesus.
Yeah, so my name's Serena Lee. Used to be Serena Denomi. I graduated, 2013, which is almost 10 years ago, which is absolutely crazy. I had an amazing time at Eden. I started out actually coming. I was homeschooled before, and then I came to Eden, and I was like, this is so overwhelming. And then it was so amazing being able to meet people and get connected with the SLC. I was able to go on some amazing missions trips, be discipled, join sports teams. We had field hockey. We won. It was pretty amazing time at Eden as president, and then now after my time at Eden, I graduated, went to Brock, met my husband through a Christian club on campus, and we got married, and now we have 2 little adorable kids. The oldest, he's 2.5, named Levi, and our daughter is 1, named Lydia, and that's about me. And then about how I came to know Jesus is actually, it's probably similar to a lot of you guys, I grew up in a Christian family. And so I remember praying a prayer when I was little, but it was more out of just fear. I don't want to go to hell, so I'm going to pray a prayer kind of type deal. And then it wasn't until I was older and was kind of more hit with the hardships of life and really understanding what it meant to follow Jesus and knowing that it's hard and it takes sacrifice and surrender, when I really felt like I was all in and saying, yeah, you know what, Lord, no matter if it's going to be hard, no matter if it's going to be challenging, I surrender to you. And so I would say that's really when I committed to being all in for the Lord.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so after you committed and you're I am in, was it really natural that you then just started sharing your faith with others, or what inspired you to kind of take that next step in your faith?
No, I wouldn't say it was always that natural to share your faith. It still isn't, even to this day. I've been walking with the Lord for years, and it still takes a bold act of courage to often start those conversations. But I would say what really started me was actually I was a volunteer at a Christian camp, and I started sharing with my campers. And that was a great way where it was I had people to help guide me and time to set out to share my faith with the campers. And that kind of gave me the confidence to know how to share my faith and how to articulate the gospel and what Jesus meant to me. And then from there, after camp, I was like, yeah, this is amazing, being able to share this with campers and see them grow and see them love the Lord. I want to do this with other people that are in my everyday life. And so I would say that's really what encouraged me to share my faith. But I wouldn't necessarily, I like how you said inspired, but I don't actually think it was really an inspiration as much of a reality check. And there was a couple things that became real to me. And one was the reality of, if I really love God, he has commanded us to share the gospel. That's part of following him. And if I really want to follow him, that's part of what he says in his word, go and make disciples. And so it's kind of the reality that, one, if I love God, then I'm going to share my faith in some way, shape, or form. And then the second reality was that if I really believe the Bible is true, and I really believe that we have an eternal destination, either heaven or hell, to be with the Lord forever or not, and I love people, then how could I not share with them? There's actually this video clip. I know it sounds really bizarre, but it was this video clip from an atheist. And he's this really well-known atheist. And he basically said, other Christians must really hate me, because if they really believe this is true, then they would all be coming to me telling me that I need to be saved and I need to follow Jesus, because if they really believe that that's the eternal destination for me. And that was kind of a wake-up call of wow, if I really love people and claim to love people, the best thing that I could do was share who Jesus is and at least give them the opportunity to say, hey, do you want to find out more? And so I think those were 2 of more of, I wouldn't say inspirations, but more of the things that pushed me of these are why I need to share my faith, even though it's really hard and it's really scary, and I really am not that good at sharing my faith. So I think those were kind of things that pushed me to do it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's so important, because you touched on such great truths there, and also it is hard. It is not, it's not okay, let me just go do this. It takes some courage and some boldness. So I would love it if you could share some examples of times that you shared your faith, and what was helpful, and when you were uncomfortable to keep going, and what did you learn along the way?
Yeah, for sure. So sharing my faith has looked like lots of different things. And so I'm going to kind of touch on a couple different ways that I really shared my faith throughout high school. So one of them was journeying with my friends. And sharing my faith with friends often looked like at the beginning was just like praying for them when I wasn't even with them, praying that God would open their hearts, that they would even be interested in hearing about God, and then having the boldness to listen and to ask questions. You know, I feel like at this stage of life, you probably have a lot of friends who are like, I don't know what I believe in, or how does this line up with culture? How does God fit in this? And so I just listened and said, hey, you know, like, what do you think about this? And actually wanting to ask questions and understand what people believe, to really understand, not to just come at them and say, well, that's wrong because the Bible says this, but to listen, to understand of like, oh, so that's how you came to the conclusion of why you believe what you believe. Like, let's explore this more. And being someone who cares and who journeys with people through having those conversations. And none of my friends was at a one conversation and then they're like, yes, praise the Lord, I got to give my life to Christ. Like, that was not how it worked. It's a lot of praying for them, journeying with them, being there to listen, asking them questions, saying, you know, like, I heard this in chapel. What do you think about this? Like, I don't really know if you read something in your devotional time and you read the Bible and you're like, I don't know what I believe in this. Ask your friends, what do you think? Because if you ask someone, hey, how's it going? What are they going to respond with? Hey, good. How are you? Right? They're going to ask you back. And so if you ask them, like, what do you believe in God? Or what do you believe in, you know, like what you heard in chapel? They're probably going to give their opinion. And then they're probably going to ask you, and what do you believe? And so it's such a great way to just have conversations and to journey along with our friends. And just asking questions and genuinely caring about their answers. And so I'd say in high school, that was a big part with like my friends, was not like a one conversation and that's it. It was journeying with them and then also having the boldness to ask them. I think often we can ask people opinions and then we kind of stop there, but sometimes we can challenge them. You know, as Christians, I feel like we are often always challenged. People are always saying, well, what's the proof? What's the evidence? How does that line up? And that's great because you have chances to show them this is how we can know that to trust the Bible. This is how we can know that Jesus really lived. But it's also okay to challenge other people. It's like, oh, well, you believe in that. Well, why do you believe in that? What holds up to make you believe that? And so I found that was also good, just educating yourself and growing in that to be able to share with other people. Another way that I was able to share with people was through just randomly. Like, God, if you ask God genuinely, like, I want to be used, I want to share who you are, God is going to lead you. I do. And I remember one day, I was going on a prayer walk, and I was just kind of in this place of like, Lord, I want to see it work in my life. Just guide me to someone to talk to. And there was this lady at this bus stop, and I just started talking with her. And then somehow we got asking about her spiritual journey, and I just asked her like, oh, did you grow up in church? And she said, yeah, I did. But, you know, I strayed away from the faith, and now I just feel like I'm too far gone from the Lord. Like, I don't feel like God could ever love me. I've messed up too much. I'm too far. So I said, you know what? Let's go grab something to eat. Let's talk about this over dinner. And so not really high-class dinner, but we went to Wendy's together and bought her dinner, and we just sat down and just talked. And she shared her story about all the brokenness that she'd experienced and the ways that she'd fallen away from God. And in that moment, I was just able to share with her about how God is such a forgiving and a gracious God, and you are never too far from God. If you want to turn to him, he is right there. And I don't know what happened after that. Like, she had tears in her eyes. I prayed for her, and she said, you know, like, I really felt like God put you in my life. And I drove her home, and then I said, you know, like, I would love to see you at a church. I don't know if she ever came. We came to a big church. She didn't contact me after that, but, you know, I planted that seed, and then you trust God with the results. And so that was just like randomly, and people all around you, everyone needs to hear who Jesus is. And so just taking those opportunities to start those conversations, whether it's in the grocery store or out for a walk or on the bus, whatever it may be, there's those opportunities. And the other thing was being intentional, having those intentional times of, I'm going to set this time aside to go out and share my faith. And whether that's through going on a missions trip, like I was able to go, we were just reminiscing about, like, I went to Staten Island, and I don't know if it's still called SOAR Montreal, but SOAR Montreal, and a bunch of missions trips, and even doing like outreach evangelism with my youth group. There's those times where you can set aside of like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to share my faith. And sometimes you get completely rejected. Like, I remember going to places, like going downtown, and people like, no, I don't want to talk to God. Like, you're kind of crazy. And it's like, okay, that's fine. But then there's other times when you go, and even like my best friend, he actually gave his life to Christ because someone randomly came up to him and said, hey, like, can we have do you want to know more about, I want to know your spiritual journey, what you believe in. And now it's been like almost 10 years, and that's how he gave his life to the Christ. No spiritual background. And so you never know how God is going to work, whether that's through randomly talking to someone or whether it's through journeying with someone on a daily basis, showing them your faith through the way that you live and through your words that you say and through praying for them.
Yeah, those are such great examples. I love that. That call to faithfully live your faith and be intentional about sharing it with others. And so as you think about how you have grown and developed in your own faith, I'm sure that you have been equipped and mentored along the way. Yeah. And so I would love it if you could share how you were discipled, who helped disciple you, what people were kind of involved in your spiritual growth.
Yeah, for sure. Discipleship is absolutely huge. There's a reason why it talks about that in the Bible of like we'll make disciples and also be discipled. And for my journey, I have been so blessed where I've had so many people invest in me. Like when I was in high school, it's so funny because like you guys are still here, which is awesome. Like these guys invested in me so much through teaching me, through having like trainings and workshops and mentoring me, showing me like even going out on these missions trips and showing me how to share my faith and being there for the times when you come back discouraged, being like, oh man, I totally had a terrible conversation. I mean, like, you know, it's okay. Let's just pray that God would still work in their heart and, you know, that you would continue to persevere to share with them. So I had people who were more in like, I don't want to say you were an authoritative role, but like more as far as like your youth leaders, I had people like that investing in me, which was awesome. But then I also had people where I really said, you know, like I want someone to walk with me on an everyday type of relationship. And so asking them to disciple me, where we would open the Bible together, read it together, and then go live it out together and to actually journey through life, whether that meant we'd be going shopping together just to do life with and catch up with, but then also like, let's go out sharing together and let's actually go share our faith. You know, let's grab our Bibles, you know, go downtown, go whatever, and go learn how to share our faith. Or, you know, I had someone in my life where it was, I'm having a bunch of non-Christians over, let's all invite our friends over and let's just work on being able to have these conversations with people. And so I got really blessed by having that. And then also seeking it out. I think that's a huge thing is seeking out, like if they have workshops, if SLC is putting on retreats or conferences or missions trips, like take that bold step of faith of saying, it's one thing to say, I want to grow in my faith and I want to learn how to evangelize. And there's another thing of saying, yes, I'm going to be trained. I'm going to be equipped. I'm going to really kind of not take it into your own hands because it's all up to God, but really work on learning how to do that and be more confident in that, which is huge. There's so many resources. You're not alone. Like you are not alone and you don't need to know what to say on your own. People can help you and support you. And so really looking for that and reading books. Like I would read books and YouTube videos on learning how to share my faith to be able to understand how to share with other people and learning about what other people believed in. Like I want to learn about Islam. I want to learn about atheism so that way I can know how to talk to people who have different opinions from me. So I think a lot of it came through discipleship and mentorship and people helping me learn and journeying with me and being there to keep me accountable of like, you have this friend that you've been praying for, like, have you taken that step of faith to share your faith with them? Or let's, you know, I know you've been journeying with this friend, let's spend some time praying for them. And so I've had those people that really pushed me and kept me accountable and prayed for me and supported me and were there in the good times and the hard times. And I think a big part of that is to share your faith, you also have to know what you believe in and be confident in it and grow in your own walk with God is like the start to be able to share your faith. Because it's out of an outpour of your love for God and your like just care and desire to see other people know him and see what he's done in your life be done in other people's life. And so as if you have those people to be able to help you grow in your faith, it's naturally going to go into evangelism, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. Yeah. That's kind of what we've been talking about actually over the last week or so in chapel.
Good. It's like I knew that.
Yeah, that's great. When you think about your discipleship journey as you follow Jesus, I'm sure there have been different highs and lows. Mm-hmm. And so I wonder if you can share a story where there was, a lot of fruit, like you could see stuff, and maybe a season where it was dry and fruit felt a bit more rare, and how you persevered.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny. So as soon as I heard that question, straight away went to when I was in Uganda on a missions trip. I was on a missions trip, and literally you could go and knock on someone's door in like the dorms at university and say, hey, you want to talk about Jesus? And they were like, yeah, come on in. And you would go and have tea. They would make you tea. You would talk with them for a couple hours. They would give their life to Christ. And then the next day they would come and bring their friends and say, hey, they want to know about Jesus too. And it was just like so much fruit where you're like, wow, everyone wants to learn about who God is and wants to grow in their faith. This is absolutely amazing. And so that's a time from like overseas, but then also like when I was in school, there were times when like people that I knew, I would just see them really being eager and interested and wanting to grow in their faith. And it would be so amazing to be able to see just how God was working at people, and it'd be super fruitful where you can just see people give their life to Christ and then change and want to grow. But then that's not the reality for probably a lot of you. Probably a lot of you are like, no. And so I remember after going on a missions trip in Uganda and doing that and just seeing so much fruit, I'm like, I'm going to try this at Barak. This will be awesome. And then it's like, go and you knock on someone's door, or you like go and talk to them. One of your classmates be like, hey, like, well, what have you thought about faith? And they'd be like, whatever. Like, I'm not really interested. And then you move on. You're like, okay, like maybe this isn't going to be the same everywhere, and every conversation is not going to be the same. And it can be discouraging. It can be really hard. Even like now, I'm in a season where one of my friends, I've been journeying with her for 4 years, like intentionally journeying with her for her faith. And she reads the Bible. She's willing to read the Bible. She knows the gospel is true. Like, she's so close, and yet she's like, you know what? I believe the Bible is true. I believe that Jesus is the way, but like, I'm not willing to surrender my life. I still want to keep my life the way it is, because I know that if I follow Jesus, things need to change. And that's hard. It's really hard. It's like, what? I've been with you for all these years and shown you everything. We've gone through the proof of the Bible, the accuracy of it, how we know that Jesus really did live and die and resurrect. And we've gone through all of this, and yet you still don't want to follow Jesus. And that's really hard to be faithful in that. But you know what? It's not our job to change hearts. We can't change hearts, no matter how, and you're not in charge of convincing someone or forcing them into faith. That's not your job. You are to be faithful, to be a witness, to live like Christ, and to share who Christ is. And you just plant seeds and trust God with the results. And you know what? That is so reassuring when haven't seen fruit, because sometimes you can go into the lies of, I just suck at sharing my faith. Like, I'm just not good at this. And you know what? At the beginning, I did just probably really suck at it. But you can also trust that it's not about what you say. It's about God changing the hearts. And he's the one who's going to do that. And so you can have such confidence knowing that God's the one at work. You just have to be faithful to share. And then the other thing that was also helpful when I didn't see as much fruit was just being reassured that, more so when I was scared to share my faith, actually. When I was scared to share my faith, it's really hard. It's really, really, really hard. But being reminded that at the end of my life, I want God to say, like, you are a good and faithful servant. And at the end of the day, it's not going to matter what people think. It's only going to matter what God thinks. And I think that really helped me in those moments of like, when I didn't want to persevere, when I wanted to give up, or when someone laughed at me, or like a friendship, someone was kind of like, oh, why are you talking to me about this? Being reminded that, like, you know what? At the end of the day, I am here to live for God. When I decided I was going to follow him, I said, I'm all in for you. And even if that means that I'm going to have those hard conversations, or not everyone's going to like my opinion on the latest cultural thing that's going on, I just have to be faithful to him. And that's helped me persevere, knowing that my single goal in life is to live fully for God. And and then you leave the results up to him. You just be faithful. God has called you to be faithful, and he is the one who's in charge of the fruit. And sometimes you won't even see it. You won't see it on this life. And that's okay, because your job isn't to see fruit or to, it's easy to be like, you want to see fruit and you want to be like, yeah, we saw people don't come to know Christ. But your job is to just be faithful. And that has kept me to persevere through the hard times when you don't see as much fruit.
Yeah, that's so great. I just wonder if you have any final thoughts that you would share with students who maybe in any one of these chairs on their journey of what it takes to continue to grow and move forward in Jesus.
Yeah, I would say one is just grow in your own walk with the Lord, because it's out of an outpouring of a love for him that you are going to go to that next chair, and as you grow in your love for him. So I would say just really seek him and pray that if you want to get to the next chair, pray, God, I want to move on. Like, I want to grow in my faith. Help me. You know, we can't muster these things up on our own, but we can seek God and surrender to him and say, help me, guide me. And then the second thing is also like asking people to walk alongside you. We're not meant to do this Christian faith alone, and we need help and support, one through the Holy Spirit, but also through people. And so find someone that you look up to, that has really inspired you in your faith, and ask them, you know, can you mentor me? Can you speak into me? Can you be accountable to praying for me? And be willing to have those open conversations and those hard conversations with them, and just journey with them. And I'm just going to leave you with one thing. So if I were to challenge you, I would say, one, make sure you're growing in your own walk with God. Two is find someone to mentor you and to disciple you that you can trust, and that is also going to kick you in the butt when you're not living the way that you should be living. There were some times I had those honest conversations of like, hey, you say you believe this, you're not living like this. So let's work on that. Let's pray through that together. And sometimes that's the conversation I need to have. And then three is think of someone that you want to share your faith with and start praying for them. As you start praying for them, God will give you a heart that wants to share with them. And then you can look for opportunities and have that boldness to just do it. You know, we always pray for opportunities, which is awesome. But sometimes we just sit back and we want like a sign to come in the sky saying, share with this person. I have never had that. Like, it is always, or like very often, it's just, you just got to get out and just be the one to boldly put it out there. And you know, if they say no, that's fine. But you just be faithful to just plant seeds and have the courage to say it, knowing that God is worth it. When you sign up to follow him, you sign up to also share who he is and live for him.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Serena. Can we thank her? All right. Two quick announcements before you go. One is Driven Junior Girls are meeting in the SLC today at lunch. And two is retreat forms are live on our website. Go to slceden.com to fill those out and sign up for retreats next year. Woo-woo! Who's excited? Yes. All right. Have a great day, everyone.